It is very cool.
Yeah, I like bubble tea.
Hi there YouTube, it's Globin here. I'm halfway through a flight flying from Cape Town over to Dubai as Emirates 388 to make sure that this isn't confusing. I'm turning off audio for the ATC channel. That way we've got a meeting TeamSpeak for VATPAC. Let's turn that on.
Hang on,
What is it?
137
137
137 6159.
Isan Liu.
That's
Isan Hachi
Oh.
Roku Ichi Go and
Go Q.
Q, that's it.
No.
Yeah, good old Japanese. Hey Tristan, you're doing Chinese, we're doing Japanese, alright? They use the same kanji.
Really?
What do we call the Chinese?
I hate kanji.
Yeah, I know, right? I've already learned hiragana, now I have
just
to learn
stopped
katakana, now I have to learn kanji. It's like,
Okay.
careful. Am I right?
I can half read katakana, but as soon as you throw kanji at me, just go away.
Oh,
I'm
I know, like,
done.
I know a few, like, my favourite katakana is to. I just can remember that, like, just so easily.
The only
Alright,
one that... Oh,
Appreciate
here we
the
go.
Japanese lesson, guys, but we'll make a start.
Hi.
So thank you all for coming. I'm sure a few more will turn up in the next couple of minutes. Before we get into the question and answer section tonight, a couple of messages from myself and for Alan Cook, who can't be here tonight. And the team will run through the 2019 plan that we published earlier today. So first one is a message from Alan Cook. So he's up to about 1 year in his role as regional director, and he just wanted to pass on his thanks to the membership for everyone's support. And a message from me. Most of you by now know that I've asked Alan to begin the search for division director, and that ad has come out, I think, in the past week. So in the last 6 months, the focus for us has really been to try and put back together a leadership team for the division, and to really stabilise things from where we were sitting 6 months ago. So obviously we're a volunteer organisation, and if you look at the size of our team relative to the size of our members, the staff team is actually pretty small for a volunteer organisation. We've got something like 1,800 members, 300 active members, and I think we've probably got a couple of dozen staff. So the message I'd like to send out is if there's anything that you think doesn't work, if you feel like complaining, or you want to help out in any way, please put your hand up. Everyone has something that they can contribute, and if you think that there's some change that needs to happen, stick your hand up. We will listen, and ultimately this organisation is about the members. It's run by the members, and it doesn't exist without the members chipping in and contributing. So the next bit is we'll run through what we call VATPAC 2019, our game plan for the year, and we'll take a few questions on that afterwards. So each of the team will run through their bits, So I'll kick off. So from a divisional point of view, from a global point of view, the three things that I'm hoping that the organisation will be able to do, first of all, is to tackle cyberbullying and unwanted contact. Some of these issues, some of these were problems that we saw last September when everything blew up. But a lot of these issues are things that simmer in the backgrounds. Some of you are probably aware of some of the incidents we've had in the last 6 months, but generally a lot of those things happen behind the scenes. But nonetheless, as an organisation, there's more that we can do in that space. Second was to increase membership engagement by targeting special interest groups. So probably a lot of us here are the sort of the Melbourne, Sydney crew, but there's a lot of groups that want to do other things, and we need to find ways to hear more from those people and what they want to see out of the organisation. The third point was to make sure that the division was self-sustaining, both financially and staffing-wise. So part of that we're definitely on track for. We've got a great leadership team with us here tonight, and they're working hard to increase the sizes of their teams so that they have the capacity moving into the future. The other thing that will be a job for my successor now is to look at ways that we can do fundraising. So most of you are probably not aware, but VAPAC has currently expenses of about $800-900 a year. We've done an exercise in rationalising that down, reducing our annual costs, and I think it's down to a few $100s now. But traditionally those costs have been covered by board members, sometimes just the division director and the IT director. So moving forward, we're going to be looking at ways to fundraise so that we don't have that reliance on individuals to fund our operations. Pass on to Dan to run through ATC training.
Yep, so there were 4 main points that we discussed, me and Ryan discussed, being the leadership team in ATC training at the moment. So the first point on there was improving the consistency of service delivery by developing mentoring and assessment plans. So essentially what Ryan is currently working on is a list or a kind of scripted mentoring sessions to make sure that every mentor is conducting the training properly and making sure that we are delivering the same standard of training between students. So there's a document being written up for that, which mentors will use. The second point on there was reducing wait times for training by sustainably growing the size of the training team. So we probably already kind of almost ticked that one off. We did quite a large intake of mentors, and every single student has been picked up at the moment, which is great. So we currently have 7 mentors. That's Harrison Scott, Owen Motherway, Will Smart, Brett Vaughan, Nick Gilbert, Nick Falcioni and Liesl Downs. And then there is 6 instructors, which is myself, Ryan Steff, Tracy Schiffman, Arjun Murthy, Callum Strawbridge and Joshua Mikulev. So we've got a fairly large team in comparison to the other departments, but it's needed to keep those wait times down, which I think that we're getting better at the moment. We created some new administrative systems in the past couple of quarters to keep up with growth and demand. So there's now a backup system instead of we have a backup system on top of the forums. And that system allows us to pull up the records of any student with a couple clicks, and it brings up everything that we need to see, which also means that if anyone wants to see their training documents, like if you've misplaced them or whatever, you can just email me and I'll pull it up and send you some links to your tier stuff and go from there. That's also going to be used to better administer how we do training as well. And the last point on there was exploring opportunities to innovate in delivery of training and assessment. So obviously our training software, you guys have probably seen it, but the En route course is the oldest course on there. I think it's from the early 2000s that it was written, or around 2009, 2010. So we're thinking of ways to update our resources to have a more modern kind of audience. Obviously we have a lot more young people now in VetPack, so thinking of ways to engage the younger people as well as the middle-aged and older people as well in delivering different types of training and assessment to those different audiences. So those are the kind of main 4 points that we're going to work on this year, as well as anything else that pops up throughout the quarters.
All right, thanks, Dan. Moving on to Owen for operations.
Yep, so for part of operations goals, we've met a couple of them so far, including reducing the file size of our sector files, specifically the Euroscope package. We've trimmed out a lot of the fat and the unnecessary files in there, so download times and install times will be a lot faster, given Australia has terrible internet. We're currently in the process of updating our local instructions and just going through, checking out all of them, making sure all the information's right, doing some reformatting to make it more readable. Regarding sector files, we're looking into updating the out-of-date ground layouts. Specifically, Perth is next on the list. Some of you may have seen Melbourne was updated recently. I'm fairly certain the majority of airports have been updated now. It's just Perth and maybe a couple of RAF airports. We're looking to do a VRC controller package similar to Euroscope. The maps will need a bit of reformatting and a couple of data points in there need to be updated. And we are also going to eventually look into coordinating with our neighboring divisions, so VAT-NZ, the guys over in Indonesia and probably India, if they're there at all, and see if we can look into developing some LOAs and getting some more standardized coordination procedures in place.
Thanks, Owen. I'll pass on to Tom to cover IT.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I'm going to head off after this. But so basically, IT is looking for development of a core backend system that's going to be the foundation for most VetPack IT systems. Currently, there's a new events page system which is kind of in beta and is kind of being built upon as we go. So that's currently accepting applications for F&O, and we're trying to build that up progressively, which is going to hopefully improve some services. We are for doing stuff with member privacy, basically how data is handled, where it's stored, access for staff members and other users to user data, especially when they don't need it, and managing member data between basically everyone, and making sure that only the data, especially staff members, only have the data that they need to do their job and no further, and also our platform for members to be able to see what data is currently being stored by VetPack and how it's used, and all access to data will be recorded and managed and logged. And by popular request, a new pilot assist system similar to ATC Assist. If you got any ideas of what you would like to see in that, just either put me an email or just send me a message. That'll be great. And currently the IT team is quite small, so looking to pick up some IT developers, ranging from middle skilled to really skilled in various areas such as web, backends, Windows applications, and some other areas. So I think applications for that close on the 10th of April, but if you send an application after that, that would be fine. I'm just looking to expand the team. And with that, I've got to leave, so enjoy the meeting.
All right, thanks, Tom. And finally, Sam for events.
Alright, so the 4 points that we discussed and aim to focus on in the next quarter and the remainder of the year for events. I'll start with the first one, which we have introduction of events exploring all parts of our airspace, including the Pacific. With the welcoming of 3 new members to our staff team, Josh McAuliffe, Nicola Fdomowski, and Nathan Noble, we now have the numbers within our department to sufficiently execute this and begin work on exploring new events out in the Pacific areas of our division. I believe Nicholas is actually in progress of planning a new event, which we may see in the near future with that. Well, moving on to the second point, we'll be strengthening interdivisional relations by increasing cross-divisional events, such as in recent we have the City Pair Bali and Perth, and we have a USA F&O coming down soon. Just to reiterate on that, will be things like for the City Pair, for example, we recently ran with VATS in Southeast Asia's VACC of Indonesia, which had quite a decent turnout. It was actually quite a great event from a few people. We want to aim to strengthen relations like this with more of our neighbouring divisions and explore new routes and possibilities that we can run events for. The third point we have is improve event turnout by reviewing and refining advertising methods. Something that I've been bringing back to the events department now is the new ways that we've been advertising events across all our social media outlets. In the past, we were previously posting on forums, VATS in Flying forums, our own forums, Batastic events page, our Facebook page, our Facebook unofficial group, our Twitter page, and recently we've just begun using our Batpack Instagram page, which has been around for a while, but it's previously inactive, which you can now find at Batpack on Instagram. The last point I'd like to mention is deliver events that the members want, so suggestions are welcome. One thing that we don't just do with events is set things up as they come around. We'd like to see any suggestions from the general membership and any ideas that you guys have. You can submit that to my email at events@vatpack.org, or just leave me a message after this, and I would be happy to go over anything that you guys have and take into consideration to run in the future. I think that's all I really have to say, and I'll hand it back to you, David.
All right, thanks, Sam. We'll now move into the question and answer part of the night. So, if you've got a question, hit your push to talk button, and whoever sort of gets in first, I'll call you to ask your question. Obviously, if the same person keeps getting the call, we'll try and rotate it around a bit. If you want to put in an anonymous question, you can do so by sending me a private message on TeamSpeak, or even if you're happy for your name to be attached to the question, but you just want to get your question on the board, so that it gets answered at some point, again, you can shoot me a private message. We'll also be writing down some of the more interesting questions and their answers, and we'll be publishing them for the people who can't turn up tonight. So with that, let's make a start. Who would like to have the first question? All right.
got a good response.
First one from Samuel Litzis through text. With the addition of NVVV Centre, will we be seeing the addition of an NWWW Centre? So that one's for Owen, I guess.
Most likely. We're still doing a bit of review on what sectors we do and don't need regarding the Pacific. I'm probably going to be 50-50 on it at the moment, but don't be surprised if you don't see it.
Alright, next question. One sec. So the next question is, are there any plans for implementing a training system where controllers can access their own training notes, and whether we are going to have a roster of controllers and their ratings? Dan?
Yes to the first, no to the second.
So, follow-up question, why won't we have a roster of controllers?
Because I think, what is the point of, first of all, what is the point of it? Would be a good question to ask. And the second of which is that we have hundreds of, I want to say hundreds of controllers, so that would be
thousands.
Okay, thousands of controllers, so that would be a very difficult list to upkeep. There is a roster on the training documents, which is a back-end thing, just for us to reference so we can see who's up to what. But that probably won't be public unless it needs to be.
So I'll follow up on that answer. So all of this information is stored in CERT. So I guess from our point of view, we don't want to duplicate something that's already in place.
Doesn't really need to be public anyway.
Question from Harrison?
Oh yeah, just add that. Obviously you do say things are in CERT. If anyone does want this stuff, you can make a request about SIM membership.
Yep.
But I do have something to add.
Yep, go on.
You recently, not that recently, it was in December, posted on the forums seeking someone for cyber safety and team behaviour. Did you get anyone for that, or were you kind of up to with that to combat the issue?
We haven't heard anything back. So there's a lot of things that we can do without that. So part of what we're looking at with our current review of TeamSpeak and Discord is what kind of information we can provide to members on cyber safety. So there's a lot of resources out there, like what's available from the eSafety Commissioner, and we'll be sharing that information and referring members to that information so that when they use services such as our TeamSpeak, or on Discord, or when they're on Facebook, and what they can do to avoid cyberbullying and unwanted contacts.
I've got a question for operations.
Yep, go ahead, Blair.
Do you think that in the near future there'll be a more refined system for looking up, like, to open up a sector for like an airfield or something? Because, like, say for example you want to open up an approach to, like, or like a tower to some, I don't know, some small tower somewhere. Can't find it obviously on Euroscope without a lot of digging. Will there be an easier way to facilitate that in the future?
Not entirely sure what you're getting at.
So, for example, I wanted to open up, I don't know, like Georgetown Tower, for example, or like Devonport Tower. Would there be an easier way to do that?
Well, we only provide profiles for fields that actually have towers.
Well, yeah, well,
and
this one has a tower.
they're all, yeah, but they're all categorized accordingly. If you look in the Euroscope profiles, I'm not entirely sure how we can better categorize them, unless you have any more suggestions.
Yeah, that's right.
Because as far as I'm aware, we have profiles for basically all actual positions across the, I'm going to say, the Australian continent and Tasmania. I'm not 100% sure on the profiles for Pacific areas, although we are working on those ones.
Alright, we've got an anonymous question here. With the documentation updates, will these include more detailed airport operations to the procedural tower PDF files to offer more airport-specific info rather than just the standard altitudes?
It's not the first thing on the list, but it is definitely on the list for this year.
Alright, next question that Tristan's put in the chat. Are there plans for... Okay, this is a very similar question then. Are there plans for the small procedural airports to have local instructions? In events in the past, we've had to design our own coordination plan, points, and what we will do per airport, etc.
Tristan, if you're able to listen, are you happy to accept my previous answer?
Yep. It's a great answer.
I think I have the same question.
Yep. Next question is an anonymous one. What do the non-executive directors do? So at the moment we've got a very young executive team with us. So great work to these guys for stepping up and contributing in a big way at such a young age. Some of these guys are still in high school. So what the non-executive directors have been brought in to help with is to provide a level of wisdom and experience. So all of the guys that we have at the moment, Peter, Greg, and Dean, sorry, lost the name for a minute there. All of these guys have served on the board at various times in the last, I've got to say, last 20 years, given Dino. So they've got a wealth of knowledge and experience. They understand how the organisation ticks, and really they're there to guide our senior team. Listen and watch and see what our senior team is doing, challenge them on their ideas and their actions, and make sure that they're performing at the best level that they're capable of performing. We've got a question here from Nick. Is there anybody in charge of updating TMAs for major airports? Does that answer your question, Nick?
Well, yeah, but how diligent, a good point was actually raised by Robert Fluke in one of the forums, and he said that Canberra had been updated for a while. I think their airspace, it says up to the TMA, the airspace goes up to only 10,000, and when in reality it goes up to 245. And when he raised that question, I did actually do some research, and actually, indeed, it says up to 10,000. Because I thought he would have been confused with the
Initial?
Yeah, initial altitude, and I thought, but sure enough, it says it's up. TMA's owns airspace up to 10,000, which I found quite confusing.
Are you saying the TMA instructions are wrong, or?
Well, just basically says that what's wrong is that the actual airspace, it should be saying up to level 245 instead of 10,000.
Well, give me a second, and I will check the DAH. Because as far as I'm aware, all of our data comes directly from the AIP. I will double check that.
Yeah. Sorry, Peter. Yeah, I've actually done that's why I've asked the question, because I thought, like I said, Rob might have been being confused with the initial altitude, but sure enough, he's correct. It actually said that the TMA it only owns up to approach only owns up to 10,000, which I thought, or somebody's boo-booed or something's happened along the line somewhere. It is actually flight level 245. I checked in the DAH, so I have done the research.
You are correct, Nick, and if you look at all of the other primary airports, you'll also find that they have up to flight level 245, but we have flight level 180 for most of the handoffs at those airports. I don't know the full history, but I would suggest it's related to VATPAC operations. I don't know whether it's linked to real world or not, but I looked at Perth just recently and got a little confused because it says 245 for approach, but our handoffs are flight level 180.
And also, sorry to interrupt, Pete. Yeah, thank you. And also, in addition, Rob was quite right in saying that what we, as part of their clearance, we're also giving them a star. Which, if they're flying from Canberra to Sydney, we're also including the TMA says you include the star. But I actually was listening to, and I thought I'll chase this up. So I was listening to Canberra approach the other night, and sure enough, they don't give any star clearances. They just give the normal clearance, and that's it.
Yeah, so a lot of this is actually news to me. I wrote some of these many years ago, so clearly we've had some changes to real-world operations that haven't been reflected in our documentation.
And by the way, great job, by the way, Johnny.
Jeez, I don't think I can take credit for something I did that many years ago.
You were only a kid then too, mate.
Alright, next question is very interesting. Will VATPAC accept people to volunteer to assist writing new LIs, or allow people to review and send them to the ops department?
We always accept community input. If you look at somewhere in the top of the LIs, it says somewhere up there, if you notice an issue or you have a, let's say, change request, you can email me at operations@vatpac.org and let me know what the change is. I'll put the change through. If you're looking to help out operations in general, just send me an email and I'll see where I can fit you in.
Can I just ask what allies are? Sorry.
Local instructions.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just ask, not follow up to my question, is Owen, are you going to sort of do a review of the TMAs, or I don't want to harp on it too much, but what actually...
So I've looked over, I've rewritten the whole Brisbane local instructions, and in the coming days I'll be handing out different instructions for operation members to rewrite.
Okay.
Alright. Basically rewrite it from the ground up, but take info from the old one, fix it up, correct anything that's wrong. So the example you gave before is a pretty good example.
Okay, cheers.
Excuse my mic, I've got a question for training.
Yep, sure.
Do you have any update on S3 Moodle, and also an easy way to access this data after completing it? So, for example, for a C1 to access S2 training documents.
What do you mean?
Like, you know how you normally have to enroll to get the Moodle?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be an easy way to source that without having to enroll to all these courses. Like, make it accessible, like a PDF or something.
Oh.
Or something like that for future references while controlling or something like that.
Oh, you mean like a reference? Like a quick reference guide?
Oh, that, and just like, yeah, parts of the Moodle which are needed. So, for example, an S3 controller could have parts of the C1 controller could have parts of the S3 Moodle available. Does that make sense?
I mean, it's always there. I mean, when I was doing my training a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, I just stayed enrolled in all the courses as I went through and went back when I needed to reference something. But if you think that you guys need a reference guide or something quick on a PDF, that's something that we can look into, sure.
Alright, thanks for that, guys. The next question is, are there any plans for doing iron mics at Pacific airports, such as in Fiji, New Caledonia, Vanuatu and PNG?
So, as I said earlier in the aims for 2019 with events, our plans to explore all of APAC's airspace for events, and don't just apply to smaller daily focus kind of events. We do aim to bring this into the light with more major events, and Iron Mike, for one of them, would definitely rock up at some point. There is plans circulating in the department itself at the moment. No confirmed date, but I can tell you at the moment there is plans in the future.
Alright, thanks for that, Sam. Who's got the next question for us? Go ahead, Harrison.
I do apologise, I just was Control C.
Yep, no worries. Here's one from Tristan in the chat. Would the training department contemplate making the procedural endorsement one that you have to do at least one sweatbox with? If I'd done a sweatbox rather than just an exam or even mentoring sessions, that would have been extremely useful.
It's been contemplated and it's still in the contemplation stage.
Alright, thanks Dan. We've had some really good questions here tonight. Who's got the next one for us? Anyone for the next question?
Are there any plans for interdivisional relationships? So, for instance, maybe getting better relationships with New Zealand.
In what sense do you mean?
Camaraderie ship. I know that's not that's a VATSIM thing, but more of a social thing. But maybe more joint events between the VAT and Z and VAT Pack.
Yeah, so the guys covered off earlier. So some of the things that we're aiming to do this year are to increase cross-divisional events. So we've already had 2 of them so far this year, I believe. So one with VATNZ this weekend, and one with VATSIM Southeast Asia with the Indonesian VACC a couple of weeks ago. And we've got the VAT USA Friday Night Ops coming to us later this month as well. And Owen mentioned earlier as well that we're looking to do some work with our neighbours as well to look at formalising our coordination procedures and developing some LOAs. Here's one. Any updates on Discord? So that's a very good question. So we discussed this internally a couple of weeks ago, and one of the outcomes of that that everyone's seen is the recent survey, and we've got a bit more homework to do. So the board is very much in favour of bringing back Discord, but there's a couple of questions within the board that we want to answer, make sure that we do our homework and get things right before we take action. But you should see an outcome on that in the next couple of months.
Just a question for the operations. Would there ever be a chance of giving the Tasmania FAR back to the team over at VAT and Z? I think they'd greatly appreciate that.
Wait, what?
Giving the Tasmania FAR back to VAT and Z, I think the whole team at VAT and Z would greatly appreciate some more airspace.
Tristan? Do you mean Tasman, Tristan?
Yes, the Tasman FAR.
I'm lost. That's a no from me.
I think he's giving you a stir, Owen.
I think he is.
I'm pretty confident it is.
I would hope. Hang on, Tristan, did you say Tasman or Tasmania?
Give back the stay of Tasmania to New Zealand.
Oh my
that
God.
includes airspace.
That's enough of
I
that.
take offence. I think that's an offence, okay.
Remember, the Australian Constitution says.
I'll put it in the pigeonhole.
Remember, the Australian
Think so.
Constitution says that New Zealand is part of Australia.
As a territory.
Alright, any more questions, guys? Ones that hopefully don't involve Tasmania? Here's one. Any updates on the new codec? So most of you have probably seen the news from VATSIM that they're inviting beta testers. Not sure if there's a closing date on that, but there's an announcement that's been copied into our forums. You can head out there. The implementation of VATPack. So we've been given we've been given no detail on how it's all going to work as yet. Once we have some more information on it, I'm sure our operations department will have a look at how that integrates with our ATC and with our CTAPs.
seeing that Zach Beasy-Fitton is on the tech team, a lot of the codec, I believe, is being made with some Aussie stuff in mind. Although another thing to bear in mind is that the codec, the development of the codec is kind of out of our hands. It's a top level VATSIM thing rather than a bottom level divisional thing. The only thing we would possibly be worried about is Gyroscope 3.1 Delta. Although with Jake Saw's client, I'm not entirely sure how long 3.1 is going to be around for.
I believe integration is going to be made with 3.1.
I believe it is, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's been hinted at in the dev chat.
Any more questions, guys? Trent, yep.
No, that was like no. Actually, while I do have it, just double checking on if there was somebody from an external region that was interested in creating an event with us. I mean, I know MDD have events, but stuff. What does Sam Hall have to say about directing people that are from other divisions to contact events team with a backpack in case they wanted to do something in our airspace?
What do I have to say on the matter?
Yeah.
Oh, just as I mentioned earlier, anyone who has any suggestions with events, with not only our division, but if a interdivisional, cross-divisional event was to occur, message us email me at events@backpack.org or PM me now. Yes, interdimensional.
We're going to the fourth dimension, guys.
Oh, yeah.
I'm up for it.
Direct flights to Saturn.
Yeah.
Across the galaxy.
Oh my god.
Alright, the next question is, are there any updates on Jagsaw's client? You'd have to ask Jagsaw, I think.
Yeah, I think I think we all get the same information from the forums, so that'd probably be the best place to ask, but seeing as he is a real-world controller, I'd respect the time that he has and not bother him on the forums asking for updates.
Upvote.
Thumbs up.
Alright, who's going to have the next question for us? Going once, going twice. Rob, is that a question from you?
Yeah, it was more on the ATC training. If we can just go back to, from that PDF, the improved consistency of service delivery by developing mentoring and assessment plans. Just, are you able to just elaborate on that again? I apologise that we didn't have that quite some time ago.
Yeah, so it was something that we had for a little while, but the document kind of disappeared. So we are trying to bring it back, but essentially there was sort of there's a checklist that mentors currently go off of, but we're in the process of actually creating a PDF which has like an actual thing. sorry, that's not very descriptive, but has a set list of things and also different scenarios, because currently with some of the mentoring sessions there's only one scenario. We're developing multiple scenarios for multiple different situations that will occur on the network, and so it's mainly formulating a kind of plan and more of a script with those kind of things to make sure that we are covering everything and doing our best to prepare people for the situations that they'll get on the network.
Is Sweatbox still out of Melbourne for Tower?
So Sweatbox, yep, so Melbourne is the assessment, and we also have Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane as mentoring sessions at the moment. The Tower.
I was just curious if we're looking at changing that to, because we've had Melbourne for such a long time, haven't we?
Yep, I think somebody was making a Sydney one. I think Josh was doing that.
At a 1.3.5
and yeah, the other ones en route changed a little while ago, and we've just changed TMA to Perth from Adelaide. So there's the potential that we'll move Melbourne to Sydney for Tower, or Brisbane.
Well, that's good news, because many do seem to struggle with parallel runways.
Yeah.
Brisbane's new runway, that might help, considering it's not as close, so you don't have to deal with some of the separation procedures.
Sydney as a whole needs work.
Alright, we've had a couple of questions come in while Rob asked his question. So here's one. There was discussion last year about potentially running some military-specific training. Is this still in the works? I suppose that's a question for you, Dan.
Sorry, what was the question?
So last year there was a discussion about potentially running some military-specific training. Is this still in the works?
To be honest with you, I can't remember that discussion.
My
So I don't
suggestion
know.
would be that it's not in the works anymore, and if a military organisation wanted to restart that conversation, they're probably best actually to reach out to Owen in the first instance, and then we can get the ball rolling from there. But as I mentioned earlier tonight, we are very interested in engaging with special interest groups. That includes military. Next one here. In terms of... So the question is about Sydney departures, which is... not sure that everyone's aware of this, but Sydney departures and Melbourne departures are approved for use during Milk Run Mondays. Any chance of approving both as standard?
No. We just don't have the traffic for it.
So I guess here's a question for you, Owen. How often does departures get opened on a Monday night?
That's a good question.
It used to. I don't think it does as much now, because probably a lot of people aren't aware of it, especially the new ones.
It's very rarely.
I'd like to say probably about a year ago you would have had every milk run opening the departures and even directorate points, but in these days it's a kind of hit or miss situation, I think. Some weeks there's a lot of traffic, some weeks there's not. In those weeks that we do reach that traffic point, however many movements I wouldn't be able to count, their departures don't seem to be open. I would say only maybe once every 4 milk runs or so.
I think even with that, it's more a case of the last few times that someone's wanted to open the departures, it's not because of the traffic, but because they want to open the position.
That is true.
Yeah, the last time I remember the departures being open for traffic purposes is, well, a year ago.
Has been a while.
Yeah, Milkham's been pretty slow recently.
I have noticed that. There's been less participation in Milk Run lately-ish.
Alright, any more questions, guys? Question: is there an event in the pipeline for megaplanes or helicopters? Yeah, that's the question. I guess that one's for you, Sam.
Sorry, I just got back.
Yep. Is there an event in the pipeline for megaplanes or helicopters?
Megaplane?
Not sure.
Maybe seaplane.
Or helicopters at least?
Look, at this stage, it isn't in planning, but I'd be happy to take that into account and throw that around the department and see what we can come up with.
And the next question.
Yep. And the next question for Dan on a similar topic is, will we cover helicopters in our ATC training syllabus?
Oh dear.
I guess that answers the question.
That's always a good one.
Chicken and egg. So what if we say Sam's going to set up some helicopter events, and then we might come up with some training material for people to use for those events.
There are bits and pieces littered throughout the Moodle in regard to helicopter ops around aerodromes, but I think it's a very difficult area of air traffic control, that's for sure.
The TMAs do state it forever asked that question. Well, the Sydney one does.
Yeah.
Most TMA instructions will list basic procedures or specific procedures for helicopters, but I suppose one thing that could be touched on regarding training would be things like phraseology, do's and don'ts, just your general stuff that happens everywhere. I think Trent has a question.
Go ahead, Trent.
Yeah, more of a comment than a question, but we did a spilled milk run one day, I think it was in last of February, that had a helicopter component to it. I'm not sure how many people flew helicopters. I know I certainly didn't because I can't. But yeah, we've done one in Sydney. I'm just not sure how successful it was. I didn't really take the time to have a look.
I don't think it was very successful. Only about 1 or 2 people, if I remember.
It's never been a big thing online. There are a few of us that do it.
It was all the regular Sydney to Melbourne's.
Yeah, the problem I have with helicopters is I'm not sure how many people can fly them particularly accurately.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how many can control them accurately as well.
Good point.
On other routes.
Yeah.
Alright, so the next question is, what are the chances for default refresher training every 6 or so months?
Probably won't happen.
Yep, so our long-standing policy is twofold, I guess. So the first is that we can't mandate that because the GRP, well, more specifically, the Code of Regulations does not permit us to downgrade someone's rating arbitrarily. So we can't actually enforce mandatory refresher training. And that's regardless of whether someone's inactive or not. Now the question has been asked before whether optional refresher training can be provided, and the answer has always been yes. So we don't necessarily have a formal refresher training program in place, but if someone's been away for a while and they want to cover off a couple of topics that they're not quite as familiar with anymore, they're always welcome to reach out to the training team. The training team's always happy to help out.
User in your channel was kicked from the server.
Question for operations from Tristan in the chat. Are there plans for better PDC aliases? The current ones are quite annoying to use.
How can we make them better?
User joined your channel.
Yep, that's probably the way to go, Tristan. If you reach out to Owen directly, you guys might be able to discuss that outside of this.
Yeah, feel free to send it to me either here, Discord, or email, and I'll have a look at it.
All right. Any more questions, guys, before we wrap up?
I've got one, Dave, for ATC training.
Yep, go ahead.
With the ATC training for Senate controllers, will part of the training include the closed tower positions for the 4 procedural airports that have airspace classified once the no tower online?
As in, like, for Canberra and stuff?
No, Launceston, Hobart, Rocky and Mackay.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, Launceston. The assessment up in Downs has a scenario where not Launceston. It's called Rocky is closed, so it is covered.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just seems when you fly out of there and run to that procedure that the centre's controllers aren't aware of it.
Yeah, we can look into that more as well. But yeah, it is in the assessment.
It's probably the case that most of our centre controllers won't have actually done that assessment scenario, given that it's relatively new.
Yep, true.
So we could probably look into what else we could do there to make people aware of that procedure.
I guess that comes back to those procedural tower documentation updates.
Yep.
User disconnected from your channel.
Alright, any more questions before we wrap up for the night?
Sorry, can I just ask one more, just for you, Owen? With the local instructions, you've asked people if they want to have their input to contact you. Are you looking for more? We have to actually reference to where that certain instruction is, or are you looking for people's knowledge of the area?
A bit of both, really. If you're familiar with the area, then I'm more than happy to take input. Or if you've got a hard reference you can show me, that's also good enough.
I think it's more, I go back to Sydney a bit, is with the third runway operations where it's classified for 777-200s, 787s. There's no actual reference to that, but it is a current runway for their operations. So it's just more, we don't have that in our teammate, we only use it to domestic 767s, so.
Yeah.
So it's just more to recategorise that runway.
Yep, I think we'll take any help that we can get.
Sorry, it's had a coughing fit. Yeah. If you can just send me some more info on that in an email, that'd be great. Just so I have it down in writing somewhere.
Any final questions? Alright, if there's no more questions, I'd like to thank you all for turning up tonight. And of course, if you have any questions for us, suggestions, concerns, issues at any time, you're welcome to contact myself at director@batpack.org, or you can get in touch with the portfolio directors directly. You can get in touch with us, obviously, through forums and through Facebook, and we're happy to help out at any time.
User disconnected from your channel. User disconnected from your channel. User disconnected from your channel.
Right, gents.
Yeah, mate.
Good evening.
See you, mate.
User
G'day.
disconnected from your channel. User disconnected from your channel.